Hello everyone, Shudito here. I'm back once again with some fresh content, and this time I'll be focusing on an emerging trend in the space of AI and how it is impacting the entire world, industries, employees, and how it's reshaping the landscape of jobs, how it's basically automating a lot of things, and what companies and individual employees need to do to really make the most out of this trend and how they can get on board with this emerging trend in the Gen AI, Agentic AI space. So, and I must say that having worked in the AI, data science, machine learning space across academia um, through my bachelor's, master's, PhD, and postdoc, as well as the industry corporate spectrum across multiple top MNCs like Novartis, GlaxoSmithKline, Abbott, Walmart, and now another company, a retail giant once again, has given me a very unique perspective in terms of how AI can best be implemented to drive customer satisfaction, customer value, and business ROI at the same time, right? So I'll mainly be focusing on these important aspects that companies and individual employees need to focus on in this era of AI and Gen AI and Agentic AI. So first, to start off with the uh, part of the employers or companies, businesses, how they should deal with it. So in my understanding and experience in my 10 years in the previous companies, and also with respect to the sort of different kinds of articles that I've read and my own unique experience as a research scientist, AI scientist, and developer, what I have found is that from a business perspective, the problem statements, they don't change, right? So the problem statements are still the same. So the thing is that how best can generative AI and agentic AI be used to solve those problem statements? And the answer there is like this, that first of all, not every problem statement requires generative AI or agentic AI, right? So there could be some problem statements where traditional discriminative AI would just be fine, right? Or even very simple machine learning, statistical learning would just be fine. You don't need generative AI, agentic AI there. So my suggestion to companies, businesses would be that don't try to force fit generative AI and agentic AI in everything that you see, in every problem statement that you stumble upon in the business context. Figure out those problem statements where generative AI, agentic AI can deliver the maximum value in terms of the customer satisfaction and value in terms of the business value that is unlocked because of that application of generative AI or agentic AI. So, and to do that, you really need to understand that how exactly generative AI, agentic AI works from a foundational perspective. You need to understand that this is not a discriminative technology. This is a generative technology, meaning that it can help somebody generate content that is highly nuanced to a specific context. Now, that context can vary from one situation to another situation. So, what I mean by that is that, so typically, in be it any industry, like be it healthcare, be it finance, be it retail, telecommunications, any industry that you take, right? There are unique problem statements that these industries deal with. And typically, what happens is that generative AI or agentic AI uh, can majorly, if you see across the spectrum of different industries, there are two primary sectors or fields within each of these industries where generative AI or agentic AI can unlock immense business value and customer satisfaction. And those two areas, in my understanding and experience, are first, it's the area of developer productivity, meaning the people, the data scientists, the machine learning engineers, the data engineers, the full stack engineers, the front end, back end engineers who are working with the massive amounts of data sets that the companies operating in these industries generate, they can become way more productive with the use of generative AI and agentic AI, especially with the latest coding tools that are basically coming from pre-trained large language models of various cutting edge architectures that are based on the transformers backbone, as we all know, and specifically driven by the mixture of experts attention, sparse attention kind of a framework that is of course aligned with reinforcement learning and all. So my point is that this is one area where companies can see immense value, meaning the developer productivity can tremendously boost up with using this automated coding assistants like, let's say, Claude Code or Windsurf, Cursor. I have been using Claude Code for a long amount of time now. I think it's been almost a year. And I have the Claude Code Max plan, which is their highest level subscription, which costs about 20,000 rupees a month in INR. And I have personally tested it, and I know that how much it has helped me. I used to write softwares earlier also as a scientist and developer, like coding each and every line of the software all by myself, right? And used to deploy them myself manually in production. But this tool, the way it has improved my productivity as a developer and AI scientist is just tremendous. And I'm just talking it from my own personal experience, not something that I read somewhere, right? So this is what I would recommend companies and businesses to do, that focus on the developer productivity part of it, aided by generative AI and agentic AI. Invest there, it will definitely give a tremendous boost. But one thing to note here, as a word of caution that I must say to all the companies and businesses, is that with Gen AI, Agentic AI, with all these coding tools that have come, one thing that has happened great is that developer productivity has tremendously improved. But at the same time, there are certain challenges also that have come. First of all, these kinds of coding tools, in order to get the best out of these tools, a developer needs to be foundationally very strong, meaning that person cannot know computer science concepts or AI concepts just superficially and write something, give some prompt, and expect that this coding tool will do everything end to end, like in full production enterprise grade quality. That's not going to happen. So what you can do is that you need to be a developer needs to be foundationally very strong, and the person needs to understand the concepts in high technical depth, be it in AI or be it in engineering, like both. They need to understand the concepts very well. Only then they can get the best out of it. So that means what? That means that with this new trend of Gen AI, Agentic AI, companies need to focus on very experienced and highly qualified individual contributors who are, let's say, at the level of principal or distinguished AI architects or engineers, data engineers, either full stack or front end, back end, but they are very senior people or people who are very highly experienced with a lot of solid grasp on the foundations of AI and engineering, right? So companies need to invest in these people, and if they invest in these people, the best thing that's going to happen is that these people alone, with the usage of these coding tools, as they eventually evolve more and more over time and get more and more better than where they currently are, companies can basically have entire production ready software just by this one person who is a very experienced architect and knows the foundational concepts very well and can give the best prompts in an iterative fashion to these coding tools and get the best out of them, right? So that is very important. The second thing in this field that I'm going to talk about that companies and businesses need to focus on is that these coding tools, they auto generate a lot of code. And with manual coding, one thing that developers know is that they are writing each and every line of code. So they know what they have written. And when they run that code, either in the local or on cloud, they see the output and they can see that, okay, I wrote this specific line of code, it broke this thing, the program crashed or it returned with some error message. Because they have written it themselves, they are very aware of it. But with generative AI coding tools like Cloud Code and all or any other coding tool, that's not the case. So it is generating a lot of content, and I'm saying this from my own personal experience. I have been trying to rewrite ScyllaDB, which was originally written in C++, and I'm trying to read. I have been trying to rewrite it in Rust using Cloud Code, and it has been a fantastic experience for me and so much fun over the last several months. And I still continue to work on it, and I've improved its performance over time, and I've had a lot of learnings. And as a developer working with Cloud Code to build this thing, and if you guys know, uh, ScyllaDB is probably one of the most complex NoSQL databases that is widely used across industries, especially in industries where write heavy workloads are very common. And it's like in top companies like Google or Facebook, Amazon, or many other companies as well, where write heavy workloads are very common, right? So ScyllaDB is a super complex database, and I wanted to build and I wanted to work with Cloud Code and throw this challenge at work at Cloud Code to see how it does um, in rewriting ScyllaDB in Rust, which is such a complex project, which has been written over the span of I think 10 years, and it has reached a certain level of optimization. And I saw that how much powerful this combination of an experienced architect, experienced AI architect and scientist, and Cloud Code can be, right? When it fits in the right way. So that's why I'm saying that companies need to focus on this thing. They need to focus on this kind of talent and also think about this investments in these kinds of tools. But once again, the thing is the debugging part, right? Debugging part, as I was talking about with these tools, is super challenging because it generates a lot of auto generates a lot of code content that you as a developer won't be aware of. So if you end up giving the wrong prompts, and that to it in an iterative fashion, what ends up happening is that because of the very way in which how autoregressive large language models work, uh, with every single erroneous or misleading prompt that you give, or I should rather say, if not misleading, maybe a suboptimal prompt that you give, you increase your chance of erroneous output more and more. So it's the logic of conditional probability in statistical theory, the way it piles up and compounds over time, like over iterations as you go through the prompts uh, with Cloud Code in this context, right? So it's very important that the developer is very highly experienced, and at the same time, uh, the code that is getting generated is also thoroughly audited. It's very tough to do it when you're working with Cloud Code, but if you have a combination of an experienced AI architect and developer and some kind of an agentic framework, maybe where you have the developer sort of work with a multi-agent system, or maybe an agent with two agentic framework with two agents, where one agent is writing the code using Cloud Code and another agent maybe using Cloud Code or some other coding model is sort of auditing that output at every iteration, and that's going back and forth in the supervision of the architect himself, AI architect himself, and that can definitely improve a lot of this performance without getting into the hassles of having to debug lines, like hundreds of lines of code which are not even written by you as the developer. So this is one area where companies, businesses need to focus, that they need to hire experienced AI architects and also make sure that the debugging happens properly, right? So that is the thing that I would like to say. Now, on the second part, on the side of the individual developers, right, how they need to deal with it, like how, as from the perspective of the employees, if I say, how they need to get on board with this emerging trend. So, in that case, what I would say is that as a developer, I have written code myself manually, line by line, deployed softwares in production, and I have also done the same thing with generative AI and agentic AI tools as well, like Claude Code or some other tool. So, and there is a very significant difference that I've felt in my own experience between these two modes in which I operated myself. So, when you are writing code manually, you know each and everything, and you are very clear about what's happening, right? And but when I'm working in the second mode where Claude Code is writing code for me, I'm just prompting it. So there, in my experience, what I've felt is that in the second mode, it's which is now the trend and probably would be the trend, would be the norm, not even the trend in the future years eventually. Here, it is very important to focus on not the syntax part of the code, but rather the very concepts that they implement. So, code has always been a language to express something, and a language, a, like a programming language, has certain specific properties, and in different contexts these properties are the things which basically say, okay, in this context probably this language is a better fit than that language. But at the end of the day, it's still a language that is trying to, implement the core concepts that exist in computer science, right? Or in the context of AI, uh, the basic AI, the AI methodologies that are been then turned into algorithms and finally written into programs, right? Uh, in a certain language. So code syntax was never the main thing. It was always about understanding the concepts very well, and that's what I would strongly encourage the aspirational um, employees who want to, or individuals who want to get on board with this generative AI, agentic AI trend and get good opportunities in the industry and as it is shaping up with this trend, is that make your foundation super strong. For example, there are certain things, right? AI is such a field where, I mean, someone, if he or she has to be really good at it, he or she needs to know the foundational concepts in statistics and machine learning, and the person also needs to know the foundational concepts in computer science and programming and systems design. Both these two skills are super important. And in this era, I would say it is even more important because there is no stopping of this generative AI coding tools. The usage will only increase over time. So you as a developer, you as an AI scientist, if you're aspiring for promising high paying jobs as an individual contributor in this AI field, you need to know these concepts very well. The coding tool will take care of the rest for you. You need to know systems design very well. You need to know the inner workings of databases very well. You need to know the inner workings of AI methodologies very well. Be it classical AI methodologies like, let's say, random forest or XGBoost or something like that, or maybe more advanced discriminative generative AI methodologies like based on deep learning or language models, whether small or large. So their foundations need to be really strong in you. Then only you can get the best out of it. So that's all I wanted to share in this video. Hopefully, um, I have been able to help here by sharing my own um, opinion here, own experience, and how they can best benefit both businesses as well as individual aspirants of jobs in the space of AI and as it evolves over time in the coming years. So thank you everyone. Hopefully this video was helpful to all of you. We'll see you again in my next video. Thank you. Bye.